Camera working okay for
You're
you?
good.
All
Hi,
right.
everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Catherine Mattice, founder and CEO of Civility Partners. Today I have Dr. Kevin Gazzara with me. Hopefully I said that right. He
You,
is, did I?
absolutely. Yes, you
Perfect.
did.
All right. So, Dr. Kevin is a certified ICF and Positive Intelligence coach, current CEO of Magna Leadership Solutions, 18 years in Intel. So, he's been doing this stuff for a long time. We would love to hear from you in the audience, checking this out. Where in the world are you? I love seeing the variety of countries that are popping in every week when I do my show. So, Dr. Kevin, thanks for being here. Tell us just a little bit more about you.
Well, I live in Phoenix, Arizona, originally from Philadelphia.
Mhm.
Worked, as you had mentioned, for 18 years at Intel, a lot of different positions, product manager, marketing manager, general manager. Spent the last 10 years managing Intel University and Intel's management leadership development for the world. We used to do about 2,500 managers and leaders in 10 different countries each year. When I had retired from Intel in 2007 to start Magna Leadership Solutions, consulting firm that offers leadership development for the companies that don't have $10 million budgets.
Yeah.
When I had left, we had just finished training our 40,000th manager. So I got pretty good
Wow.
at this stuff and something I enjoy, and it's my passion.
I love that. Wow, that's very cool. So we're going to talk about positive intelligence today. So let's just dive right in. Talk to me about how mental models are formed. And maybe we got to back up and what is a mental model?
Yeah, so a mental model is how you structure kind of your world. It is your perception. It's how you see things. We all see things a little bit differently. That is based around, our DNA, our upbringing, our experience, our education, knowledge. All of this kind of comes together. And that's what helps create our mental model. When you see something, if you see something on the street, you see another person, you immediately create this mental model. And what
Right.
positive intelligence does is it helps you kind of recognize what Shirzad Shamin, who is the author of the book Positive Intelligence, if anybody hasn't read this, highly recommend it. Awesome, incredible, easy to read, very insightful book. Um, he talks about the 9 saboteurs and the master saboteur that really focus your brain or try to focus your brain on creating that mental model, and then how to get through that using what he calls your 5 sage powers, which we'll talk a little bit about in this podcast.
Okay, awesome. So I know a team member of mine has been working with an executive coach, and her coach uses positive intelligence, and it's been very eye-opening for her and me as I'm not coaching with her, but just kind of looking online and learning more about the saboteurs. So you don't have to go through all 9, but maybe give us some idea of what some of those saboteurs are.
Sure. Well, I'm going to quickly try to run through all 9 without
Okay, do
too
it.
much depth, so everybody can get an idea of which one they have. And
Yeah,
by
so
the way,
everyone listen, and when you hear the saboteur that resonates with you, do share. And I love, thank you everyone for posting where you are. We got all sorts of people from all over the place. Love it. All right,
yeah.
so tell us the 9 saboteurs.
So the 9 saboteurs, very briefly, is, and I think the terms will describe them pretty aptly. You have the avoider, the people that basically look at something and put it off. You have something called the controller. That's your second saboteur. And we all, by the way, we all have these, usually to some degree or not, depends on what the strength is that helps kind of create that mental model for you. You
Mhm.
have the pleaser, well, always wants to keep everybody happy. My mom she was the ultimate pleaser. No conflict for her. And then you have 3 hyper saboteurs. You have the hyper rational, facts only. You have the hyper vigilant, constantly worrying about different things with all of the details. You have the hyperachiever, and the hyperachiever is you can always do more, you can do better. There's more stuff out there, right? More and more and more and more. And then you have the restless one that is constantly thinking about all of the different things that could be done. And then the last 2 you have the stickler, focus lots and lots on detail, just can't get away from the detail. And the last one is the victim saboteur. So those are the 9. And then you have this master saboteur that Shirzad talks about in his book called the controller. The controller takes all of those and basically creates that model for you.
Okay.
And the judge is the master saboteur, and the judge creates this mental model for you, bringing all of those other kind of saboteurs together.
Okay. Pause real quick. You can get the SHRM credits at the end. So you got to listen through, and then I will show you the activity code. So thanks for asking that. I'm new to having SHRM code or SHRM credits as part of this for the certification. So I should have mentioned that. I need to work on my intros. So thank you for sharing all of that, Dr. Kevin. So the idea, from what I understand, is that, for example, the people pleaser, that it's a good thing, but then it becomes a saboteur once it sort of crosses the line where you're not standing up for yourself when you need to, or if you're the kind of hyper vigilant, that's a good thing until it's not. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The analogy that Shirzad uses, which I really love, is your hand on the hot stove, right? That, you want to, that sensation that you have in your hand that would tell you that as you're getting near the hot stove, you want to be able to recognize those are the saboteurs telling you, the description of kind of what you want to do, whether you're a pleaser or a hypervigilant, whatever. And the idea is that if you get your hand on or near a hot stove, it's the degree of strength that the saboteurs that you have hold your hand on the stove, right? So the key is that if you can really build your positive intelligence strength, and there's an assessment for that I'll give you the URL at the end today, that anybody can go and take the assessments for free. It's the strength of those saboteurs that hold it. And as you build your positive intelligence strength, your brain strength, using what they call the sage powers, then you can quickly remove your hand without it burning your hand. And if you can do that, life gets pretty good pretty fast.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like it's leaning into a strength and recognizing when it becomes, when that strength becomes a weakness.
Exactly.
So let's go back to the mental model then. So so I have a master's in communication. We call it the personal field of meaning. I think it's the same thing based on what you were saying earlier. How does the mental model or personal field of meaning, like, how does that work along with the saboteurs? Like, how do those two concepts connect, I guess?
Well, the definition that I use, Catherine, from mental models comes from a book called The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge out of MIT. And I was fortunate enough to study with Peter and get certified on systems thinking. And I taught that at Intel for many, many years. And we teach that as well in our Leading Forward Academy that Magna Leadership Solutions offers. And the mental model is created by your saboteurs, right? It's the strength of your saboteur. So you can imagine that if you are an avoider, for example, and it's not that you are an avoider, it's that you have that saboteur with the strongest strength, and the strengths are 0 to 10. Let's say you have an avoider at a 9.5. Your mental model that's creating is that you're looking at things in a way to think about, how do I keep the peace and also avoid that situation. So your mental model that's being created is essentially your saboteurs are talking you through that so that you can know. And I think the real value that I had when I went through the program 2.5 years ago, and then got certified to teach positive intelligence, the 6-week program, was the thing for me was that once I recognized not only what my top saboteurs were, but also the strength of them, then I was able to work on them. And then over the last couple of years of doing a lot of these, and we run a 6-week program on positive intelligence every 6 weeks. Got one starting in about 2 weeks. By going through that, one of the things that I've learned is that you can really keep these saboteurs quiet you always want to keep them there because they're just there to kind of raise that little red flag of concern. The key
Yep.
is are you feeding them by trying to keep them happy, or are you backing off and just using them kind of as a guidepost or as an indicator of what's important? And I've been able to, over the last 2 years, cut my saboteur strengths, my top saboteur strengths, not quite 50%, but about 30%. And by doing that over and over through the regular mindfulness kind of process that's part of the book, you can really get better at this very quickly.
Gotcha. Okay. So the mental model is like a lens that you're looking at the world through, and related to the saboteurs, I like what you're saying. So if I'm an avoider, the lens I'm using is kind of always keeping my eyes peeled for opportunities to make sure I'm keeping the peace, and sort of always thinking through that. And we talk about that with everything, right? In implicit bias training, I've been calling it personal field of meaning because that's what the field of communication calls it. But same thing, that it's about all of your experiences and the way you view the world. And so when you, like you said at the beginning, when you look at someone who's going to pass you on a crosswalk or something, that you're using your bias or your mental model. So we're kind of always, we have to be aware of our mental model. So it sounds like this book is one way to make that happen.
Yes.
So what does coaching look like? Talk to me about how do you help people work through this?
Well, so when I do executive coaching, I've adopted the process. It follows very much, for anyone that's familiar with ICF, the International Coach Federation. I had gotten my ICF certification, and the process that Shirzad presents to the trained facilitators is very similar. The difference is the focus is trying to be a little bit more specific around the kind of identifying the saboteurs, figure out methodologies using what they call the 5 sage powers, and we can talk about those in a minute or two, to strengthen your sage, limit your saboteurs. And in the coaching, I have found typically with most of my executives, I give them the offer to go through the positive intelligence program first, free as part of my coaching process. And if they'd like to do that, and it makes sense, and I've had lots and lots of executives go through this, I'd say close to 100%, maybe not 100%, probably in the 90 to 100% of those people that go through find it incredibly valuable. And then as a coach, it gives us a common language. And I think the biggest thing that we found is, in my coaching practices, the people that have gone through there, particularly the execs that have gone through positive intelligence, it gives them a methodology to self-diagnose. So before they get to the coaching session, so in the past, you come to a coaching session, you have a lot of powerful questions that you use to help get people unstuck. I think what they found is once they recognize the saboteur, since they've gone through the training, they now have a methodology to self-diagnose. And because of that, they come to the session very, very prepared for a really deeper discussion. So the coaching goes much faster. It goes deeper for them. And typically they come to resolutions significantly sooner.
Okay. I'd love to hear from everyone. If you have questions, by all means, ask them. Or if you're the saboteurs, as we were going through them, if one of them resonates with you, by all means, share. I would say the one that resonates with me is the overachiever. I'm just never feel like I've gotten far enough, and I'm always trying to get to the next thing. And I guess I haven't necessarily seen it as something that's a saboteur, other than maybe getting in the way of relationships sometimes because I'm like, I got things to do.
Yeah. Well, it's a closed system, right? That Senge would talk about in the 5th discipline. It's a closed system, and you only have a certain amount of time, right? And then you have to allocate your time, right?
Yeah.
And the hyperachiever saboteur is always going to try to convince you there's more and more and more. Problem is there is an unlimited amount of time, so you have to make trade-offs, and And the hyperachiever saboteur is going to convince you that those trade-offs on relationship or family or health or whatever are really worth it. And when you get there, the big challenge with the different saboteurs, particularly the hyperachiever saboteur, which is one of mine, by the way, is that when you get there and you've achieved that, guess what? There's another one that they have for you at the next level. So it's a different one, or it's the next level up. So you never seem to get there.
Yeah, and it makes it hard to sit still. Vacations are rough. I have a hard time just, and then I'm always tired. And okay, this isn't about me. So how do we identify? So maybe as you were going through the 9, we're not getting any comments. So maybe people needs a little information on how would we identify what our 9 are. So probably get the book. What else?
Yeah. So if you go to our site, there's a site called PQ. They use that term for positive intelligence. PQ like EQ. Emotional intelligence. So go to pqtrainingandcoaching.com.
Okay.
And if you go to pqtrainingandcoaching.com, you'll get a little bit of a pop-up. Just fill in your name and email address, and you'll get instantaneously is you'll get a quick start guide. And the quick start guide will help you quickly ask some questions about your particular environment that you're in at the moment. And it'll give you 2 very critical links. It'll give you a link to the positive intelligence assessment, so you can take the assessment and get your report back that will give you your strengths of your saboteurs. And it'll give you a second link that will identify your SAGE power. And the SAGE power is on a 0 to 100 scale. How high is that SAGE power? That's your brain's ability to keep the saboteurs at bay.
Okay.
And take those. Probably take you less than 10 minutes to take both of those. Sometimes the servers are a little bit slow. So just give it a little bit of time. You may not get it back instantaneously. Usually within the first 30 minutes is the worst case scenario. And anybody can contact me for some reason if you get it into a challenge as well. But I know we only have a few minutes. Let me talk about the 5 SAGE powers so people know how to attack these saboteurs.
Okay, and then we have a comment, but so you go, and then we'll address. It looks like Diane. Sorry if I didn't say your name right. Okay, go ahead.
So the 5 SAGE powers. The first one is empathize, right? And this is when the emotional reserves are really low, either in your part or in particular on the other person's part. So you really want to empathize and find out what's happening there. The second SAGE power that we all have is the explore power. It's really going deeper. It's being that really curious anthropologist, to find out what's really going on. We're talking about one thing, and you can kind of sense, as a coach, that you can sense there's somewhere else. So you have this explore power. Then you have the innovate power, and the innovate power is it's where your obvious ideas just aren't working. You're trying lots and lots of things that just seem to be really simple problem, and none of them are solving the problem because it's constantly reoccurring. You have the navigate power, which is really kind of aligning to deeper values, right, of who you are, and it's when you just don't feel like the solutions are connecting. And the last one, which is the one that we love, which we try to use, I think, and overuses, which is called the activate power. And the activate power this is where you're trying to take action and preempt your saboteurs. I know if I get in this situation, the hyperachiever is going to take over. So what can I do so I can keep that as quiet as possible?
Okay, so part of coaching is understanding your saboteurs and then learning these 5 SAGE skills in order to help keep them at bay so that you don't drive yourself bonkers.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We have a comment. I relate to hyperachiever. Okay, so do we. I found myself comparing myself to people in their journey because I'm not satisfied. Put this up here with where I am, which has been detrimental to my mental health. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that was that's a personal comment, and so we appreciate you sharing it and agreed. Celebrating small wins is super important. I remember when when I was getting my master's degree and doing my thesis, and I got through some little step I had to get through the whole thesis process, which is like 3 years. I just remember my professor saying, you have to celebrate this. It's a big deal because life moves quickly. And so you've got to just celebrate all those little things. I think that's a great piece of advice. And I'm with you. It's definitely stressed me out a time or two to be a hyperachiever. All right. Well, Dr. Kevin, where can we get a hold of you if we want more information? Obviously here on LinkedIn, but where else?
Yeah, so lots of ways to reach me. So first of all, if you do have a question, you can send me an email. Just send it to Kevin at Magna Leadership, MAGNA leadership.com. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions. My promise to you is there's no sales pitch here. I just really want to help people. You know, I've put over 100 people through the program, and by the way, I've put almost all of my family through the program. So you can use it to really develop relationships as well. So you can contact me that way. You can reach me through my website, pqtrainingandcoaching.com. One of the things I would encourage everybody, Catherine, is I stay very, very active on social media and post lots and lots of articles every morning to LinkedIn. So you can follow us at Magna Leadership. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Kevin Gazzara. I think there's only one of me there. Or you can follow me if you like Twitter or Facebook. Twitter, it's Dr. Kevin spelled out, DOCTORKEVIN, Dr. Kevin. You can get my articles and posts there. And then on LinkedIn or Facebook as well, it's also Magna Leadership. So any one of those ways.
So you're all over the internet is what
I am all over.
All right. Let me see if I can figure out. I should have done this right before we started. I'm just going to tell you the activity ID because I need to figure out how to show it for my next show. So if you're here for SHRM credits, the activity ID is 23-EHTXA. So 23-EHTXA. Thank you so much, Dr. Kevin. It was a pleasure meeting with you. And let's see, we got one more question. Will you host personalized leadership training for first-time managers? Is that something you do?
Absolutely. We have our Leading Forward Academy. We do those every year, and be glad to talk to anyone about that. And we kind of have emerged our leaders both into the different leadership elements, as well as bringing the elements of positive intelligence and kind of making that connection for them. So yeah, the answer is absolutely yes. Send me a note. Be glad to talk to you about what we have. And by the way, if it's not the right fit for you, I'll make a bunch of recommendations of where you can get the right fit. Our goal is to get leaders trained, and if we can help you, great. If not, we want to point you into a place that you can get help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, evening, night, depending.